On an all-new Buffy the Vampire Slayer, something's making people's nightmares come true.
We have to stop it.
Or else everyone in Sunnydale's going to be facing their own worst nightmares.
What are you afraid of?
It's the ultimate terror, when nightmares turn deadly.
You can't be free.
I am free because you fear it.
He's too strong. I can't fight him.
An all-new Buffy.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
And this week, we will be jumping into episode 10 of season 1, Nightmares.
Jumping into like a chalk painting on the sidewalk.
That's right, baby. And again, they're bearing the lead on these titles. It's Nightmare. I mean, it's got to be about werewolves, right?
It's got to be werewolves, finally. Any luck? Although our director this week did direct a couple episodes of Knight Riders, so with any luck, maybe it's about a talking supercar.
Oh, okay. And his name is Bruce Seth Green, correct?
Bruce Seth Green, yes.
Right. So he's the other Seth Green's evil doppelganger from another universe.
Right, the Mirrorverse, as discernible by his goatee.
All right, we'll have to keep an eye on him. I don't trust doppelgangers.
No, you shouldn't.
I just want to start this week. I want to let everybody know I had a really stupid injury it's been about 9 days ago now. Something as innocuous as trying to open the window in my room, and I apparently threw my back out. And so I am in a lot of pain. And now as I'm sitting here right now, it's okay. If I move certain ways, it's basically if I move certain ways or when I'm actually sitting down into a chair or laying down that's when the horrific pain hits, but it can just hit randomly. So if you hear any weird grunts, groans, screams, anything like that, I apologize. It's out of nowhere. I'm going to the chiropractor in a couple of days. Hopefully he can, I don't know, remove my spine, fix it and put it back in, whatever it is they do. I've never been to one. So
yeah, spine removal.
No.
Spine removal. Standard practice.
Right. That's what I figured. Star Trek style. Pop it out, fix it, pop it back in.
Right. Yep. 100%.
So what's new with you this week, James?
Nothing. Not a damn thing. Same old.
Yeah, man, I wish I could say that, but yeah, the old broken back syndrome. You know, it really sucks getting older.
Yeah. I mean,
Although
we're in our 40s now, so it doesn't take much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's better than the alternative, but you know,
it's true.
Getting older does get old.
Yes. Nothing socials or email wise either. Silence on those ends. So we are
just apparently podcasting to about 17, 18 people.
17, 18 people that don't want to talk to us.
They're like, yeah, we'll listen to your show, but I mean, come on, we're not talking to you for
it's okay. One day they'll warm up to us.
One day. Maybe by, I don't know, season 5 or 6.
Maybe season 4 when like pretty much every episode is just so awful.
Yeah, and we have nothing much to talk about. We're just like, yeah, this sucks. Let's just skip this one. We'll see you next week, folks.
Maybe we don't even do season 4, Jeremy.
Yeah, we'll just retcon the whole season and pretend like it never happened.
We'll go from season 3 right to season 5.
Never say a word, never acknowledge it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
I wouldn't be against that, to be honest. We're completionists here. We're gonna have to do it. We're gonna have to suffer through.
We will go through the dirty details with a fine-tooth comb.
Dirty deeds done dirty.
Riley, Finn, and all.
Oh, fuck Riley. Oh. Anyway. So why don't we jump into some dates and deets? Unless we have any news or corrections or anything from the prior week. Nothing?
Nope.
Let's do some dates and deets.
Let's jump into these dates and deets. Once again, our episode this week is Nightmares. Original air date was May 12th, 1997 on the WB. Our director for this episode is returning director Bruce Seth Green, who directed a total of 11 episodes across the Buffyverse, 8 for Buffy and 3 for Angel. His Buffy episodes include Teacher's Pet, The Pack, this episode Nightmares, Some Assembly Required, Halloween, The Dark Age, Ted, and Phases. His Angel episodes include In the Dark, The Prodigal, and The Trial. His non-Buffyverse credits include TV episodes of Magnum P.I., Knight Rider, V, MacGyver, and Diagnosis Murder. No movies under Mr. Bruce Seth Green's directorial belt. Our credited writers for this episode are Joss Whedon and David Greenwalt. Joss has a total of 40 credited episodes across the Buffyverse, 29 for Buffy and 11 for Angel. His Buffy episodes include Welcome to the Hellmouth, The Harvest, this episode, Nightmares, Out of Mind, Out of Sight, Prophecy Girl, When She Was Bad, School Hard, Lie to Me, Ted, Innocence, Becoming, Part 1 and 2, Anne, Amends, Doppelgangland, Graduation Day, Part 1 and 2, The Freshman, Hush, Who Are You, Restless, Family, The Body, The Gift, Once More with Feelings, Lessons, and Chosen. His Angel writing credits include City of, I Fall to Pieces, Sanctuary, Judgment, Happy Anniversary, Waiting in the Wings, Spin the Bottle, Conviction, Smile Time, A Hole in the World, and Not Fade Away. His non-Buffyverse credits include episodes of Dollhouse, Firefly, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the original Roseanne.
And his other biggest non-Buffy credit would be being a massive douchebag. He's credited writer for movies Avengers: Age of Ultron, The Cabin in the Woods, Alien Resurrection, a couple others. David Greenwalt credited or has 24 episodes across the Buffyverse, 8 for Buffy and 16 for Angel. His Buffy episodes include Teacher's Pet, Angel, this episode Nightmares, School Hard, Reptile Boy, Ted, Faith, Hope, and Trick, and Homecoming. His Angel episodes include City of, I Fall to Pieces, Room with a View, I Will Remember You, She, To Shanshu in L.A., Judgment, Dear Boy, Happy Anniversary, Dead End, There's No Place Like Blitzkrieg, Heartthrob, Offspring, Sleep Tight, and Tomorrow. His non-Buffyverse writing credits include episodes of The Wonder Years, The X-Files, Prophet, Moonlight, and Grimm. No movies under Mr. Greenwalt's writing belt. Just another epic failure.
As always, our regular cast this week includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, and Anthony Stewart Head as Giles. Our guest cast this week includes the return of Mark Metcalf as the Master, Andrew J. Furchland appearing once again as the Anointed One / Colin, Christine Sutherland as Joyce, Dean Butler makes his first appearance as Buffy's dad, Hank Summers. He's probably best known for playing Almanzo Wilder in the later seasons of Little House on the Prairie, which he followed up as Jeff Moondoggy Griffin on The New Gidget. But he's also made appearances on numerous other popular television shows through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Jeremy Foley as Billy. He's probably best known for playing Griffin Lowe on Caitlin's Way, as well as voicing Casper in Casper, A Spirited Beginning and Casper Meets Wendy. Justin Urich as Wendell had episodic runs as Romano on Third Rock from the Sun, Doc on Undressed, and Dan Mills on Opposite Sex. But he's also made appearances on ER, Smart Guy, Arliss, Silk Stockings, The West Wing, Gilmore Girls, and several other popular television shows throughout the 90s and 2000s. And fun fact, he is the nephew of Spencer for Hire, Robert Ulrich.
Really?
Yeah, he's
Wendell.
Robert Urich's nephew. Yep, Wendell.
I'll be damned.
J. Robin Miller as Laura. She's probably best known for her long-running stint as Lydia Karenin on General Hospital, but she's made appearances on Roseanne, Unhappily Ever After, Diagnosis Murder, Just Shoot Me, Charmed, Beverly Hills 90210, That 70s Show, NCIS, CSI, JAG, and a ton of other popular network shows. Our supporting players this week include Terry Kane as Miss Tischler, Scott Harlan as Aldo, Brian Pietro as the coach, Dom Magwali as the doctor, and Sean Morin as the stage manager. Interestingly enough, 3 members of our cast this week had reoccurring roles on the Jonathan Frakes hosted Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction. Yeah,
They probably share. If I had to guess, I'd say they probably share an agent.
Probably. But
Oh.
I thought that was interesting. For anyone unfamiliar, Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction was a anthology show where over the course of an hour episode, 4 or 5 different stories are shown. None of the stories have any logical explanation, and some of them are actually true stories, and it's left up to the viewer to decide if it's fact or fiction.
Yeah, it was a vehicle for Jonathan Frakes, better known as William T. Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation, and I liked it. I always liked that show.
I liked it too. Yes, Jonathan Frakes, the king of the backward chair sit.
That's right. And you know why that is?
No idea.
He has a very, very, very bad back.
Really?
Yes.
So you and he have that in common.
Yes. I believe he had, I don't want to swear to this, but I believe he had 1 or 2 surgeries even. And it's, when you have a back that bad, even with surgical intervention, a lot of times it's just never, that's why if you look at him, he's a very, he's always got really good posture and very straight. It's a very stiff back is what it boils down to.
Our episode synopsis this week reads, people in Sunnydale begin living out their worst fears, including Xander, who comes to school in his underwear, and Giles, who discovers he can't read.
Wow. Okay. Mine says, a series of strange occurrences lead Buffy and her friends to discover that their worst nightmares have literally become reality.
That one's better.
I think that one's a little better. Yeah.
Yeah. See, this one would have been fine if it had just stopped after the living out their worst fears.
Right. They had to go in there and throw a couple of really specific things in there, like.
Right.
Why don't you take us through the whole cold open?
I sure will.
Okay.
So we open in the Master's lair, and we're panning through the chamber and over to the entrance where we see Buffy is sneaking her way in, stake at the ready. She stops and takes a look around and slowly continues her way into down to the floor below. And the camera pans behind a pillar where we see the Master hiding. Buffy continues further on into his lair and suddenly senses him behind her and spins around to face him. He lets out a loud vampire hiss, and the Slayer freezes and drops her stake. And she slowly starts to retreat back away as the Master advances on her, and she hits a wall, and she can't get away from him any further. And watches in horror as he reaches out and wraps his hand around her neck, and she looks up at him as he goes in for the bite, and she starts screaming, "No, no!" And we cut to Buffy's room where Joyce is on the edge of her bed, shaking her awake. It was all just a nightmare.
Yeah, so am I to take that her worst nightmare is that she's totally useless and stupid? I mean, she's walking around with the stake, she's all Slayer, and she sees him, she's just like, oh, let me throw down the only weapon for literally no reason.
I think more realistically what our takeaway is supposed to be is that she's very frightened of encountering the master.
Yeah, okay.
Not that she's afraid of being useless, but
no, I can buy that, but it's like, okay, let's say I was encountering like this thing, the thing that I feared above all other things, and I had a weapon. Yeah, the last fucking thing I'm gonna do is be like, oh, for no reason, just drop my weapon. I don't know. It just seemed dumb. She's the Slayer. You know? I don't know.
You know, Jeremy, there's budgetary constraints. We can't have a big fight right in the cold open.
I know. Don't give her the stake, you know. Just have her walking around unarmed, because that could be part of the nightmare, you know.
It's just I do agree to the extent that it would have been better had she fought and lost. Like that would be,
or part of her nightmare is just simply that she comes face to face with him and she's unarmed.
Right.
You know, and she's like, oh shit, I'm really screwed, you know.
But I think
instead of, oh, I have a stake, but oh my God, I saw you and now I'm so scared that I just dropped my weapon.
Right. I think even if she was unarmed, it's still a better approach would have been to have her at least put up some sort of fight.
Yeah, a little
against
quick
the match,
cuffs, and he's just way overmatches her, and it's just over.
Just a quick little ninja fight.
Yeah, quick little karate fight, and bam, you know.
So Buffy wakes up, and like I said, Joyce is at the edge of her bed, shaking her awake, and she's all, you know, it's time for school, and Buffy jumps up, excited for school, and that segues into Joyce telling Buffy that she talked to her dad, and he's coming to see her for the weekend, and Buffy seems pretty stoked about it. That'll take us to Sunnydale High and into the halls of Sunnydale High, where we see Willow and Buffy walking down the halls to Willow's locker or Buffy's locker. I think it was Willow's locker, or maybe it was Buffy's. Anyway, they're walking down the hall.
I didn't catch.
They're walking down the hall, and they're talking, and Willow's and grilling Buffy about her dad a little bit. You know, do you see him a lot? Not a whole lot. Buffy tells her that, you know, he still lives in LA but comes down for the weekend sometimes, and Willow asks when they got divorced, and Buffy says it was finalized last year, but they were separated for a while before that. And Willow says her parents don't even bicker, and she asks if Buffy knows why they split up, and Buffy says she didn't ask, but she heavily intimates that she believes it's her fault because of all the trouble she got into as the Slayer back in LA. You know, burning down the high school gymnasium and all that.
Burning down the house.
Palling around with Pike.
Yeah. Oh God, no, let's not.
So we cut to a classroom, and Cordelia's checking her makeup in her little compact, and a young man comes over.
That's called. I couldn't. In my notes, I was trying to. I put purse mirror.
called a compact.
Think what it was called.
So Cordelia's checking her makeup in her compact mirror, and she's using the light that's coming in from the window, and a young man comes over and by the window, and he's using the light to look at his paper, which made absolutely no fucking sense to me. Like,
I can't see in all of this artificial light.
Right? Are the fluorescent school lights not bright enough for you to read your fucking paper? Like, I kind of understand Cordelia using the natural sunlight to check her makeup.
Right. Right. And she's
anyway,
like, fucking, do you mind?
Right. Exactly. She's like, hello, doofus. And this guy looks at her and she's like, you're in my light. And Xander pops up. He was obviously already in class. And he's like, that's when we find out that this young man's name is Wendell. And speaking of Wendell, he's sporting a beautiful late 90s, early 2000s ponytail.
Yes, he is. Very McCloudish.
Very, yes.
Very McCloudish.
Made me envious. Made me briefly consider growing it out again.
Yeah,
getting kind of long. Well, anyway,
I've been there, done that many times, and it's that ship has sailed. For me.
So, Xander's like, Wendell, what's wrong with you? Don't you know that Cordy's the center of the universe, and the rest of us revolve around her? And Cordelia says, why don't you revolve yourselves out of my light?
Yeah.
As I know I got a little detailed with the dialogue there, but that whole exchange was pretty funny.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good dialogue in this episode. I got kind of dialogue heavy in my notes because it was pretty good stuff, and I did make note that I believe that's to me at least, that's the first really funny line Cordelia's gotten. Yeah.
So then the bell rings, and Wendell and Xander go to their seats as Willow and Buffy are coming into the classroom, and Xander, for whatever reason, tells them that Wendell was in Cordelia's light, and Wendell says he's so ashamed. And
yeah, I'm like, that's really something worth. Like, right. Listen, guys, you'll never believe this.
Right. That's why I mentioned it, because it was so out of
bitch. Can you believe it?
Right. It's not like Buffy and Willow were even like, "Hey, what's going on?" or anything like that. This is Xander just offered it out of the blue.
You ready? Follow me here.
Right.
Billy's a bitch. No. You know.
So they talk about if there is any homework, and Willow and Buffy tell Xander that the homework was active listening, and Xander's like, what are you talking about? And they're like, Miss Tischler demonstrated it yesterday with you.
But she was, and Buffy says she was wearing a tight blue blouse, I think she said.
Yeah, Buffy says she was, because Xander's like still like
still not getting
comprehending, and Buffy's like, she was wearing that tight sweater, and right away Xander says, "Oh, the midnight blue angora."
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
and you see, I was listening. Mm-hmm. Just further cementing Xander's level of creep.
I think from here on out, I'm going to call him Xander Weinstein.
Xander.
I mean, it's that's pretty much the character that they built back then. Yeah. For these first couple of seasons.
Yeah. Maybe we just start calling him Joss.
We'll just call him Xander Whedon.
Xander Whedon.
Yeah.
So Miss Tischler comes in, tells everyone to take their seats, and she starts going over the lesson, and eventually she asks Wendell if he could read a couple of paragraphs on a couple of the pages. And as she's asking that, Buffy accidentally drops her pencil, and she bends down to pick it up. And as she's going to sit back up,
and that was not a flattering camera shot, by the way.
Of
it was right directly at her cleavage as she was bending down.
Oh.
I was like, yikes, Joss.
As she's sitting back up with her pencil, she happens to glance at the door and she sees a little boy standing there, just looking at her.
And I just want to say, as soon as I saw, because there's a lot of things about these older episodes. Well, all of them really that I have forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I saw that little boy, I was like, "Is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt?"
Mm.
I mean, he
does look. He does have a
striking resemblance.
He does. You're right. He does. Yeah.
And then I was so spoiler alert, it's not. But I was so unsure that I actually paused it and Wikipedia'd it real quick, and that's when I discovered no, it's not him. I went to IMDb, and I was like, no, it's not him. But I was like, wow, that there for just a few camera shots, he looked a lot like him at that age.
He definitely does have a resemblance to him at that age. Something else, did you happen to notice? It struck me the 2-note music key that plays when she sees Billy was very, very reminiscent to me of the notes that play during the dream sequences in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not. Dang it. I always miss those cool little nuances. What the hell am I doing with my life? No, I didn't catch it. So it was like do 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 do.
Yeah.
That really creepy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very, as soon as I heard them, I was like, that's very A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Huh. I'm sure they did that on purpose.
Oh yeah, and
you can play, X amount of notes from anything without it being, a copyright infringement. So
right, and I didn't go back to listen to I didn't go back and listen to it side by side or one right after the other to see how close they were, but just the fact that immediately I was like, that's Nightmare on Elm Street dream.
Yeah, then they pulled off exactly what they were going for.
Right.
Yeah.
And that happens a couple times in this episode, during the dream sequences, especially when Billy's around.
I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know how I miss this all the time.
Well, that's why there's two of us, Jeremy, because
yes. A solo rewatching podcast for any show would really suck with one person.
Right. And also if we both paid attention to all the same things, it would still be boring.
Yeah, that's
with
true.
Two of us.
I wonder what it'd be like if we had 3 or 4 people.
I don't know.
It would be chaos. That's for sure.
Maybe that's something we can look into for next season.
Yeah, maybe we can hire Joss Whedon to do. He's not going to get any work.
Oh God, no. I would rather have Nicholas Brendan on this screen in front of me.
Never mind. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it.
So she sees Billy, and we cut back to Wendell, and he's opening his book to do the reading that Miss Tischler asked him to do, and he screams and drops the book on his desk, and suddenly there's just a shit ton of tarantulas and other spiders crawling out of the book and all over him, and Miss Tischler screams, the students around him start to scream and scatter out of their chairs.
And I object. I do not believe there were any other spiders other than tarantulas, because I looked very closely.
Okay.
And I thought, well, there's a reason. And I thought, everybody is losing their absolute shit over tarantulas, which are probably the most harmless creatures on the face of the earth. Right. And I am not a spider person, but I mean, tarantulas anyway.
But yeah, Wendell's losing his shit. He's, screaming, help, get him off me, help, get him off me. And we cut back to the little boy in the door, and he says, sorry about that. And the credits roll. Buffy theme plays. That is our cold open.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt says, sorry about that. Hey, maybe
He
it's
actually
maybe it's
did a
another
musical number, but
could be another doppelganger.
could be. Could be.
So let's hum the entire intro. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so we come back from commercial and we're back in the old creep cave, the Master's creep cave, and he's talking to Colin, the anointed one with the creepy ADR voice.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's so
I'd
weird.
I'd forgotten about it, honestly,
It's
since the
like when
last
you were a
time we
little
saw him.
kid. It's like when you were a little kid and you would talk through like a box fan.
Right.
But you would also lower your voice.
Right.
It's kind of like that. It's so off-putting.
Right. And you thought you sounded like Darth Vader, but you sounded absolutely nothing like Darth Vader.
Yeah, you sounded just creepy like this kid sounds.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So he's talking to the little freak, the anointed one, and he's telling him fear is the most powerful force in the human world. It's not love, it's not hate, it's fear. And he goes up, the master walks up to this giant wooden cross and he says, for instance, these two pieces of lumber, bring me the greatest fear that I have. And then he reaches out and puts his hand on it and grips it, and of course his hand starts burning because vampire versus cross. And he's like, but like pain, fear can be controlled. And so he just keeps holding it because he's a badass. And he says, if I can face my fear, it can't master me. And then he finally lets go. And I think then he's like, damn, that hurt. But he keeps that to himself.
Off camera,
He's like, yow! But then he says, something's happening above. A powerful psychic force. Do you feel it? And, I guess, and Colin's like, rah, 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 whatever the hell he says with that weird ass voice that you can't tell half the time what the words are. And
he says, I feel change.
Yes, because then the master says, change for the worse. And the camera pans up and we're at school.
And that's when the camera pans up. That's when the master's like, fuck, that hurt.
Yeah, he's like, ice.
Why the fuck did I grab that cross?
Yeah. And so we're at school, and Mom pulls up with Buffster, and I do believe it's a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I could be wrong, but totally 90s car. SUV, I should say. And she's asking, Buffy, how you feeling, blah, 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 blah. And, you were yelling in your sleep. And she's like, do you remember what you were dreaming? And Buffy's like, no, which is not true. And then she realizes she forgot the bag she packed to go with her dad this weekend. And Mom's like, well, it's cool. Don't freak out. He can pick you up here and then come to the house and get your bag. It's, not the end of the world. And Buffy says, he's picking me up here, right? And Mom's like, yeah. She's like, are you afraid he's not coming? And because he is, and blah, 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 blah. Basically, this is, I think, establishing that maybe she feels as though her father's going to abandon her. Or maybe she's feeling abandonment issues, maybe real or not.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an extension of what she was talking about with Willow in the hallway scene.
Right. And it's I guess a lot of teenagers whose parents divorce go through these type of emotions and feelings that
right.
one or other of the parent might or is going to abandon them or what have you.
Especially if they feel in any way that the separation was their fault.
Their fault, in
which Buffy clearly does.
Yeah, we've discovered that she obviously does feel that way. So then we're still in the school halls, and Willow and Xander are walking. They catch up with Buffy, and they want to know if she's talked to Giles about that whole spider incident. And Willow makes it clear that she's deathly afraid of spiders. Xander, on the other hand, he's just not. He's like, spiders just don't bother me, but now if it was Nazis crawling all over my face, and I was like, wait, you specifically fear Nazis crawling on your face. Okay, buddy.
And also, like, have we established, like, why would Xander be? I get it, Nazis are bad guys, but why would Xander be afraid
Why
of?
specifically Nazis? Yeah,
Right, like I
like,
don't.
Wouldn't Willow, because she's
Right, Willow's Jewish.
Yeah, shouldn't.
Right,
Yeah.
and
I
I'm
don't think Harris is a Jewish.
right. I'm fairly
Sure.
certain that 9 episodes in, we haven't gotten a religious or any idea of what religion Xander is, or
Buffy for that matter.
or Buffy for that matter, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or Willow.
Or Willow. We're
But
just
Willow's
presuming since her last name's
Willow's
Rosen.
just obvious. She might not be she may not practice Judaism, but she's obviously Jewish by heritage.
Right.
So anyway, I found that strange.
Yeah.
So they walk into the library, and Giles is just he comes running out of the book stacks, like looking really, really weird and just kind of disoriented, and they're like,
hey, bewildered.
Yeah, just bewildered, just even kind of surprised to even see them. And he's like, he was gonna look it up, but he got lost in the stacks, and they just let it go. And I'm like, guys, he said he got lost up. There's like 5 stacks.
Right.
Like, you should have been like, are you feeling all right? You know what I mean? You got lost up there.
Right.
There
also appeared, although where he came out of, there appeared to be a doorway to a room beyond that.
Yeah. So there you. I mean,
did you catch that though?
No, I didn't.
No.
But just the notion that he got lost in like a
Right.
10-foot square space would bring me. I would have to question his how he's feeling,
Right.
So anyway, like I said, he just seems really out of sorts and everything, and it just says he couldn't find anything about the incident, and he suggests they like actually go and talk to Wendell, and so they're like, okay, let's do that because Giles has clearly had a stroke. So.
Also, let's not neglect to mention the fact that for the second episode in a row, the second week in a row, Xander has proceeded to be a complete douchebag. And
second week in a row, you mean 10th episode in a row?
Well, and torment one of his best friends.
Oh yeah,
regarding her fear.
A fear, yes, her fear of spiders. Yep.
Yeah. What a dick. Anyway.
Yeah, he's definitely a ball breaker, but he's also a little what's the word I'm looking for? Rapey?
Right. And there's a difference between being a ball breaker and like I bust my friends' balls all the time, but I wouldn't sit there and like knowingly
like harp on a phobia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like
I
have a friend of mine who's afraid of needles. Like I wouldn't sit there when I was with him and like, talk about needles or pretend to be getting injected or
have him come with you to watch you get a tattoo.
Right. Like,
yeah. And like hold his eyes open like,
right.
like fucking,
like it's a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
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 All right.
You go ahead and take it from here, my friend.
All right. So we cut outside to the outside of Sunnydale High. And,
to this ridiculously nice outdoor area that they get to eat lunch. And I'm like, fuck these kids and their nice ass schools. Hellmouth or not,
And we see Wendell out there sitting on a bench, and the team approaches him, and they're all like, hey, what's up? You okay? And Wendell's not really paying attention, and Xander's like, it's good talking to you, and starts to walk
he's
away.
ready to just go. He's like, okay, fuck it, this dude's weird and fucked up.
Buffy grabs Xander and pulls him back, and Wendell's all like, did you guys want something? And they thought
they're like, just hair tips for that dope ass ponytail.
Right. Like, what's your shampoo and conditioning routine?
Mane and tail, obviously.
And they're like, oh, well, we just thought maybe you'd want to talk about what happened yesterday, with the spiders. And he's all like,
He's like, well, isn't it clear with me sitting out here by myself at a picnic table that
I'm doing just fine.
Talk about it. Leave me the fuck alone. But they press anyway.
Right. And he's like, I don't know what to say about it. And Xander refers to them as insects, and Wendell starts to lose his shit a little bit. And he's like, they're not insects, they're arachnids.
Yeah, the arachnid. Why does everybody make that mistake? And they're like, whoa, Wind.
But when Wendell's like, they're arachnids, Xander says, this is so awful. He says, they're from the Middle East.
Yeah. I was like, this is definitely the 90s.
What?
Yeah.
So, yeah, when Wendell goes off, why does everyone make that mistake? Arachnids have 8 legs, insects have 6.
Because everybody knows that, right?
Right. And Buffy's like, again, kudos to Sarah Michelle Gellar. Like, through the majority of this scene, she's got like a sucker that she's nursing. Mm-hmm. And like when Wendell flips his shit about people making that mistake, like the look on her face and the way she just slowly draws the sucker out of her mouth, it's like, damn, this day player is trying to steal the fucking show with this performance. Because I mean, he goes full on like I don't know, Sins of Our Fathers, and he's just like, right.
And they're all like, whoa, bro, you're only going to get that same, you're only getting $500 for the day. Let's bring it down a notch.
So, they're like, has anything like this ever happened before? And Wendell says,
like, expecting him to be like, well,
right.
Like last week I was reading a dime novel and a bunch of daddy long legs popped out and crawled in my mouth. I mean, what the fuck? Has this ever happened before?
Right. There was this one time in kindergarten, I was reading Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yeah, I mean, come on, what the fuck?
But he says yes, and they're like, when?
And they're like, wait, what? Did you say yes? This has happened before.
And they're all like, when? And he's like, lots of times. Like,
and they're still just like,
right. Like, this is being really drawn out for no good reason.
Yeah, there's no, no, this is definitely 100% I call these time filling scenes.
Oh yeah, this is a filler conversation.
Oh yeah, like, because they film a bunch of shit for all scenes and then they trim everything down, they get to set. And then when they see what the final time is, they're like, go back to that one where that fucking day player was just droning on about shit. Put it all in. That'll knock us up to the 43.5 minutes we need for this episode,
Right.
Because he's going into he's going into some pros here, my friend.
Right.
Like, this is his to be or not to be right here.
Right. And like, he's not. So like, Buffy's like, when? And he just says lots of times. Like, that's not an answer to the fucking question, Wendell.
Oh, but he's about to give us a fucking story that is just.
So then
this is his to be or not to be, I'm telling you.
So then Willow's like, oh, you must hate spiders more than I do. And Wendell like just smiles, the creepy ass fucking smile.
Yeah.
Like, if we had if our big bad in the cold open had been a giant spider, this would be the scene where I'm like, that dude is the fucking giant spider, or he's controlling the giant spider.
Yeah, because he smiles like, I'm gonna eat you later.
Yeah, he gives a creepy smile and a creepy little laugh, and he's like, I don't hate spiders, I love them. They hate me. And literally, like, the rest of the group is like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah, they're like, Xander's looking around like to see if he accidentally took any type of narcotic, because he's like, what the fuck is happening right now? And Wendell is about to get just full-blown wacko.
But before that happens, Cordelia strolls by, and she looks at Buffy and she's like, I hope you studied for the history test. And Buffy's like, what the fuck are you talking about? you bitch. No. She's like, what history test? And Cordelia's like, the one we're having in fourth period right now, which is a misnomer because obviously they're not having it in fourth period right now.
Right now, because Cordelia is not fucking there.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, Buffy's all like, there's a history test. Nobody told me there was a history test. And she runs off.
Yeah, she's freaking. Because, we've established in these first 10 episodes how much she really cares about her grades and her school.
Right.
Or not.
So Willow ends up taking a seat next to Wendell, and she's all like, what do you mean you love spiders? And Xander's like, it's platonic, right?
Yeah, prepare for, here we go.
If you watched the episode, that is a reasonable question. That is a reasonable question that Xander asked.
With this Wendell character, yes,
right.
It is. He's like, it's platonic, right? And then he's like, right.
and Wendell launches into like, this is his Hamlet, his Macbeth.
Yes.
He's like, I'm gonna quote it verbatim right now.
Please do.
He says, with all the passion of the of the Romeo and Juliet balcony scene.
Yep.
Or
fucking Hamlet talking to the goddamn skull.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He says, I had the best collection in the Tri-County area. Browns and tarantulas and black widows. Then my folks shipped me off to wilderness camp. All my brother had to do was maintain their habitats. Instead, he left their heat lamp on for a week. When I came home, they were all dead. That's when the nightmares started.
So let's dissect this, if we shall. First of all, what the fuck is wilderness camp? And why the fuck did his parents just ship him off there? Like, there's something else going on. Like, they know that kid is fucked up, and they wanted him out of the house because he's like fucking the Omen kid.
So this was a thing that I've come to find out through looking into it, was something that happened quite frequently particularly in the 90s. And they don't delve into it here, but what would happen a lot of times is people would just show up at your house and whisk you away to these wilderness camps.
Bullshit.
And you would pretty much have no idea what's going on. And you would eventually come to find out that your parents basically shipped you away to a camp for troubled kids for a certain duration of time to like get your shit together. And then they would let you come home when they felt like, okay, you're fine or whatever. Like, this actually happened.
I'm surprised I don't know what they are then. Surprised my parents didn't ship my ass off.
Your parents either didn't know about it or you clearly weren't as bad as you thought you were.
I was. I was. They must just not have known about it.
They may have.
This proves that Wendell is fucking nuts.
Right. Or maybe your parents were just good enough parents and smart enough to realize that there's something shady as fuck about just letting people come to your house and take your kid.
Yeah. Or maybe they thought outside the box and they were like, I got it. We'll just parent him ourselves.
Right.
But yeah, this proves Wendell is fucked up because his parents had to call one of these shady wilderness camp organizations to come and whisk their child away. Of course, he did have the largest spider collection in the Tri-County area, so that was probably one little giveaway.
Right. So, but we're not done yet. He says, and that's when the nightmares started. And Willow says, the nightmares? And Wendell says, it's always the same. I'm sitting in the classroom. Teacher asked me to read something. I open up the book and then there they are. They're coming after me. God, can you blame them after what I did? The fuck did you do, dude?
Right?
Like, you had no Wendell, calm the fuck down. You had no control over it. Your parents paid some sketchy ass motherfuckers to take you away to get your shit together for a few months. And your brother didn't bother to watch your spiders. It's not your fucking fault, dude. Let it go.
Yeah, let it go. If they're going to come after anybody, it's probably your shitty little brother.
Right. Fucking Madam Web isn't hunting you down, dude, because you fucked up the Spider-Verse, all right? Okay, just get over it, man.
No,
Get over
he
it.
can't. He can't get past it, bro. He took, I don't know, let's just say 8 lines of dialogue. He was in his fucking trailer on set, and he was like, I'm going to Hamlet this motherfucker.
Right.
When I bust out this scene, they are going to offer me a recurring role in the credits.
Right. They're
going to want some more of this sweet Wendell talk.
Right. I'm going to take it one step further. He was like, they're going to offer me credit, reoccurring. And then he was like, no. I'm going to Hamlet the shit out of this. And they're going to give me my own fucking Wendell spinoff.
Wendell's fuck Angel.
Fuck Angel.
This is all about the Wendell show, bitches.
Right.
And this is all about me doing battle with the spiders who have come back for revenge.
Right.
Yep. That's it. That's
7 seasons in a movie.
Because he went balls to the wall on that scene.
He did.
And I was like, this dude's either really horrible actor or he's so good that he just makes me think he's a horrible actor.
Right.
So
then Xander's all like, and that's how it happens, like every time. And Wendell's like, yeah, yesterday in class, I thought I just nodded off again, but then everyone else started screaming too. And then we cut to, you want me to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go.
All right. And we cut to back inside Sunnydale High. We're in the one of the hallways, and Buffy's frantically looking around for her history class. And we see Cordelia is standing by a door holding it open. And Cordy's like, you don't know where class is, do you? And Buffy's all like, and Cordelia's like, wow, big shock. You haven't been there at all, the entire school year.
Because that couldn't have happened at least not in my school. Like you've gone to this one class like once or twice.
Right.
Right.
Right. And Buffy's like, well, I was there the first day, I think. But you're right. It would never happen. Like, eventually...
They would call you down and be like, what the fuck? You haven't been to this class in 3 days. Are you insane?
Right. Like, you're start...
so much shit.
Right. You start making a regular appearance in this class, or you will not be making any regular appearances at this school.
Right. Or we will just regularly kick your ass out the front fucking door. Yeah, exactly.
So Cordy's all like, oh, it's in here.
And by the way, this should have been Buffy's first clue that this was a fucking some type of dream.
Because Cordy's being so nice.
Being nice and helpful.
Yeah.
And and concerned that she knows where she's going and shit. Yeah.
I love the fact that in Buffy's I don't know about this test nightmare, Cordy is being a decent person.
Yeah, Cordy's the one who's trying to help her out. Not one of her close friends, but Cordelia.
Right. Yeah. Buffy's all like, I haven't been to class. I haven't read any of the assignments. How am I going to pass this? And Cordelia's like, blind luck. Yeah. So we cut into the classroom. And Buffy's sitting there looking around at the other students, and the teacher walks by, and Buffy glances over at Cordelia, who's just fucking breezing through the test like it's nothing. And Buffy goes back to taking her test, and the teacher comes by again and looks at Buffy and continues on. Buffy flips through the test, and all the pages are still blank. And she looks at the clock, and it's 11:20. She looks at the space for her name, and she's like, well, at least I know my name. She starts to write her name, and the pencil breaks, and she sighs, and she grabs her sharpener and starts sharpening her pencil and looks back at the clock, and suddenly it's 12:10. And she's just in disbelief, and she looks around at everyone, and the teacher's just eyeballing her and
giving her the stink
pencil.
eye.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's that all about? Trim up your mustache, bro. You look like a walrus.
And she looks back down at her test, and then the bell rings. and all the students get up and turn in their tests and file out of the room, and all of a sudden there's Billy in the door looking in, and Buffy sees him. And he's got a sad look on his face, and he walks off down the hall.
Now, we don't know his name is Billy at this point, do we?
Oh, you're right. My bad.
I just kept calling him, because I didn't even know it, so I just kept calling him Strange Little Boy until we do find out what his name is.
So yeah, that the little boy walks off down the hall, and the classroom's empty, and Buffy's sitting there all alone at her desk. So
I'll take this next scene if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, I really want to talk about this.
Okay.
So we cut to the hallway. It's passing period, and there's these two girls we overhear talking, and one of them's telling the other one about how they both got detention, but it's unfair since Sean started it, so apparently some type of scruff. And she's like, so now we can't do the movie. So the other girl's like, meh. She doesn't say anything because she's an unpaid extra. And she just shrugs. And then the girl who's been talking says that she's going to go take a break and, gives the cigarette symbol. And the girl's like, she answers her without speaking because that would cost money. So she leaves.
Right.
And
that'd be $250 a day instead of the $100 a day.
$250 and fucking catering access.
Right. You get to indulge in the buttery croissants and sun-made raisins
and
craft
don't
services
forget the cornbread muffins.
And the cornbread
dry as fuck cornbread muffin. So the one girl leaves, and then the one who's been talking turns to this door that says basement access. It says basement access, maintenance only, authorized personnel only.
Right.
So it's clearly
and it's fucking unlocked.
Yeah, it's unlocked. It's clearly unlocked. So she just opens it, bops right down the steps, and it's like,
fuck.
Dude, that is so many hazards. That's so many fire codes, bro. That's just, dude.
Right. There's no way. No way that.
Even if have you ever gone to a school that had a fucking basement?
Yes.
Oh, you have? Okay. Well, yeah. I never have.
But for one, basement access would be locked. 100%.
Oh yeah, and it would not be the door to enter that said basement would not be in a hallway that students walk by,
Right. But also, like, to that point, every school I went to, the regular maintenance janitorial closets were kept locked all the time.
Yeah, with some serious doorknobs, like
right.
Those big, heavy steel doorknobs,
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no way that this basement access would just be in a random hall, and B just
walk
unlocked
by all day long every day.
Right.
Yeah, but this one is, and she just pops the door open and just skips right down the steps into the basement, and it looks exactly like Freddy Krueger's fucking hangout. You see a couple of boilers. It's all dark. There's bodies hanging from meat hook. No, that didn't happen. But you know what I mean. And yeah. And 1, 2, Fred, have a smoke now. So she's down there. She puts her purse up on this little table that happens to be there, and gets herself out of smoke and matches, which. No one used matches, maybe in the 60s. I mean, you can't flick a fucking Bic, I mean, whatever. So she's fumbling with these matches and everything, and we see this hideous-looking fellow that's watching her from the shadows. And I kept looking. It looks like they took the standard vampire makeup, and they kind of, like, they applied it to this guy, and then they kind of just fucked it up in certain spots. Because I kept trying to figure out at first. I was like, is he supposed to be a vamp or just randomly ugly? I don't know. So we see this guy, and he's watching her, and he all of a sudden this dude just says, he just comes like barreling towards her all of a sudden, and he goes, "Lucky 19," and he just gives her this just ridiculous like fucking karate chop, just like Wah! and she's like wah, and she falls down on the concrete, and then he continues to lift, because at least to me, I couldn't tell.
We should say he's got a huge deformed club arm.
Yes, but I could not tell that, at least in the version I was watching. It was so dark down there in that basement that I couldn't. I was like, why is he just using one arm, and he's like karate chopping her over and over while she's on the ground, and she's screaming bloody murder, and he's just like blah blah blah, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then as he's beating her to death, I guess, that cuts to a poster that says "Smoking kills," and we go to a commercial, or what would have been a commercial. But yeah, so you could see in that scene, you could see the big. I couldn't see it. I didn't know.
Yeah,
and I had forgotten. It's been years since I've seen this episode.
Yeah, the smoking kill sign. I have in my notes that totally would have been a Freddy Krueger quip.
Yeah, like
if this was a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Yeah.
But I don't know. I found so many things about that scene to be just terrible. But then we cut to immediately when we come back from what would have been a commercial. We're at the hospital, and Buffy and Giles have already discovered all of this that's happened, and they're there at the hospital to see this girl who was stumped half to death. And she does look pretty fucking banged up. And she basically looks like Rocky after the first Rocky movie when he fought Apollo. Like, she's fucked up. Yeah. And yeah, and she looks pretty bad. And of course, so Giles has got like some get well soon flowers or whatever. And they're kind of questioning her, but they're doing it calmly and not trying to rile her or anything. And
we also throw in real quick, this is where we find out that this young lady's name is Laura.
Yes, her name's Laura. And she says she's never seen anything like it. And Buffy's like, or no, Giles is like, it? Well, can you describe it? And it's like you can tell that she can see it in her mind's eye, but she just can't bring herself to talk about it, to give it, realism. So, and they're like, and Buffy can tell that, and she's like, it's okay, that's fine, just rest for now, and if you do remember later, then you can tell us, even if it seems weird, And so the nurse comes in, and she comes in and walks through the frame, and then off camera, and there's some bad ADR thrown in here where she's like, she needs to have her rest now. And it's just horribly ADR'd in. And they're like, they were already leaving anyway, so that's utterly pointless to have that line in there. So they go to leave, and right as they reach the door, the girl says, "Lucky 19." And they turn around, they're like, "What?" And she says, "It's what he said right before. That's weird, right?" And Giles is like, "Yeah, that's pretty fucking weird." And they
Yes.
So, would you like to take it from here?
I can, yeah. So they're out in the hall now, and Giles sees her doctor, and he asks if she's going to be okay, and the doctor says she'll recover. She's got a couple of shattered bones and some internal bleeding, but
and some internal bleeding. Like, that's a serious fucking thing. Like, shouldn't she be in ICU if she has internal bleeding? I mean, I'm no doctor, but fuck.
But Doc McStuffins here says she got off pretty easy.
Yeah, she got off pretty easy, just with some shattered bones and some internal bleeding. Oh, and the arm that he ripped off of her and beat her with.
And which is funny because that's Buffy and Giles' exact same reaction. They're like, what, have you looked up what that fucking word means? Because
Right.
that doesn't seem like it's it. And the doctor's like, well, the first one's still in a coma. And they stop by another room. And Buffy's all like, first what? And the doctor says, the first victim. And they look into the room and there's a little boy laying in a hospital bed. And the
And
doctor,
how she doesn't immediately put this together. Because me having not seen this episode in 700 years, and I immediately was like, oh yeah, it's him. It's it. He's in school. Well, he's actually in a coma. Yep. Okay. He's making our nightmares come true.
right.
Kill this little fucker.
I think the in-episode explanation for it is probably because the kid's not facing the window. Like,
plus we have like at this point like another 32 minutes to fill.
Right.
So
right. The doctor says they found him a week ago. Same MO as Laura. And
what they should have done was had him wrapped from head to toe in bandages, like those old school, like with broken, and like and couldn't tell who he was. That would have been hilarious. Sorry. Go.
Yeah, the doctor says the same MO as Laura, only he's in worse shape, and if he doesn't wake up soon, and he trails off, and he's like, somebody's got to stop this guy, and Buffy says somebody will, and we cut back to the school, and there's this.
Oh, I love this scene. I want to marry this scene. It's so bad.
We cut to the school in the hallway, and there's these 3 1950s
dudes,
greaser looking motherfuckers, like
straight out of Grease.
They look like they just came from auditioning to be T-Birds on Broadway. And
they all have on matching
leather jackets,
leather biker jackets.
Yeah,
and sunglasses, and they're inside school.
Yeah. And the leader is all like, if he wants to fight, then I'm taking him down. I'm not backing off of this. It's about honor. I'll break his neck. We cut to Xander and Willow coming down the hall towards Willow's locker, and Willow's all like, all I'm saying is Wendell had a dream, and then that same thing happened. And Xander's like, I get that, but what about Laura? And Willow's like, maybe she dreamed about getting beat up.
That was the best line.
She dreams about that. Like, what?
And she says it just so flatly and nonchalantly while she's putting her book in her locker. She's like, well, just maybe she had a dream about getting beaten up.
Right.
And I'm like, well, yeah, because everybody has those dreams.
Right. So at that point, this older lady who again is like straight out of like Hairspray.
Yes, yeah, she's like the quintessential
like
Italian
70s
mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a weird juxtaposition against like the 50s greaser type punk kid. And
well, it's he's obviously Travolta, and then this is Travolta's Italian mutta coming in. Yeah,
But suddenly appears in the hall, and she runs up to this punk kid, and she's all like, "Oh, there's my little baby. How's my little Pookie? Cute little rascal." Yada yada, and he's all like,
cheeks and
right, and he's all like, Mom, what are you doing here? Don't kiss me in front of the guys. It's embarrassing, Mom. Blah, blah, blah. And Willow and Xander looking on, little amused smirks on their faces, and they head off to their next class. And Xander's like, it could all be a coincidence. Wendell finds a spider's nest, and we all wig because he dreamt about spiders. It may not be connected. And they enter the classroom, and everyone starts laughing. And we see Willow. She looks confused, and she turns around to look at Xander, and that's when we see that Xander is now standing there, having gone from being fully clothed to being in nothing but his boxer shorts.
Yeah, and Willow should have immediately said, fucking there. It just
Right.
proved you walked in this room and you had clothes on, now you don't. My theory's correct. Let's let Buffy know, end of episode.
And
but instead she's like shocked, like
right.
Xander?
But also she's shocked, like but also a little
Yeah, also she's like, oh. Yeah. Xander.
So she's all like, what happened here? And he's all like, I don't know. I was dressed a minute ago. And he's like, it's got to be a dream. And he starts pinching himself and telling himself to wake up. And he suddenly realizes he's not dreaming. And he runs out of the room screaming, Willow in hot pursuit.
And is it just me, or does it look like his boxer shorts are too small?
They probably are.
Like they weren't his. Like they're literally wardrobe boxer shorts.
They probably are.
I'm like, why didn't you just have him stripped down to his own? I don't know. Maybe he's a tidy whitey guy, and they were like, "Oh, you can't wear tidy whities."
Right. Or maybe his own boxers weren't small enough for them.
Or maybe they had skid marks.
Listen, let's just go on record saying right now that obviously putting Nicholas Brendan in his underwear in this episode proves that there was no sexism on this set.
Oh, not at all.
They were willing.
They were all equally molested on this show.
Right. They were willing to exploit the males as well as the females.
Yep. Old or young, man or woman.
We got the down the shirt boob shot of Sarah Michelle at the beginning, and now we've got Xander standing there in his too small underwear. Yep. So let's not claim any inequality here, people.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna let you take this scene because I believe you have a clip to play for us. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. So this is after Xander has gone running out with Willow following him, and we go to the library with Giles, and he's got like a million newspapers spread out all over this table, and he's poring over them. But I don't know, he's not acting right, and you hear him say, "This can't be happening." And Buffy comes in and she's like, "Hey, did you find anything?" And he's like, "I don't know." And she's like, "What do you mean you don't know?" And you don't know that if you did or didn't find anything? And he's like, "I can't read." And she goes, "What the fuck do you mean you can't read? You can read like 3 languages." And he goes, "Well, 5 actually." He says, "But nothing on here is making sense. It's none of these words. It's all gibberish." And he just slams the paper down. And Buffy picks it right back up and looks at it. And there is a photo of this little boy who we've been seeing in the school. And it says, Billy Palmer, 12, in coma. And he also is wearing a baseball jersey with a bat over his shoulder. And he's got the number 19 on his jersey. And let's play the clip here, and we'll get a little bit more info on Mr. Billy Boy.
That's him.
Who?
The kid I've been seeing around school. 12-year-old Billy Palmer was found beaten and unconscious after his Kitty League game Saturday. Doctors describe his condition as critical. Where was this published? Last week. It says he's in a coma and intensive care. This is the boy from the hospital.
The first victim? You've seen him around the school?
Yeah, first when the spiders got Wendell, and then when I did nothing on the history test. I thought it was weird seeing this kid around, but I forgot about it.
The boy's been in a coma for a week. How could this be possible?
What, am I knowledge girl now? Explanations are your terrain.
There's astral projection. The theory that while one sleeps, one has another body, an astral body, which can travel through time and space.
Billy's in a coma. That's like sleep, right?
In a manner of speaking, although one doesn't always awake from a coma.
Could I be seeing Billy's asteroid body?
I don't know. As usual, one doesn't have an inordinate amount of information to work with.
Lucky 19.
Should she indeed be seeing his asteroid body?
I when I was rewatching the episode for this, I literally laughed out loud when she was like, "Could I be seeing his asteroid body?"
Yeah.
I was like, "This is this is why I love this show."
Yep, exactly. But so right when she notices the number on his jersey and she kind of connects it to the lucky 19 thing that Laura had told them about earlier, the door to the library opens and a guy walks in. He's, "There you are. Why aren't you in class? What are you doing in here?" "Well, it's Buff's dad." And she's like, kind of like, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to pick me up after school." And he's like, "Well, I need to speak to you privately, if you don't mind." And she's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And he seems quite happy and jovial. And she introduces him to Giles. "This is Mr. Giles. This is my dad, Hank Summers." And they do their introductions. And she and her Faja leave the library and to go out to speak privately.
She's my Faja, Hank Shamash.
Yeah, she's my Faja, Hank Shamash. Take it from there, James.
All right. So Giles, they leave the library. Giles tries reading the papers again, and we cut outside, and Hank and Buffy are walking as they talk, and he's like, "I came early because there's something I've needed to tell you about your mother and me and why we split up." And she's like, "Well, you always told me it was because," and he's like, "I know we always said it was because we just grown too far apart." And
then he says, "But what it really was is marriage." Sorry, go ahead.
And she's like, "Yeah, well, isn't that true?" And he's like, "You know what? Let's sit down." They sit down, and he lets out a deep exhale, and like, "You're old enough to know the truth." And she's like, "Were you fucking around?"
Well, she does say that.
She does
not
say
in those words.
Not in those words. And he's
not was mom fucking around. She just immediately goes to
right.
What were you fucking around, bro?
Right.
He's like, no, your mother was.
He's like, "No, Buffy, your mom was a straight up whore." No.
Okay then.
And Hank's like, "No, it was nothing like that." And she's all like, "Well, what then?" And this broke me, dude. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I got a little that broke me in a good way. Like, I felt legitimately bad for Buffy. Like, this man looks her dead in her 16-year-old eyes, and he says, "It was you."
And she's like, "Huh? So how was it? Was it?"
Right. And like, Buffy immediately, like, kudos to Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh yeah,
again. I bought this 100%.
Oh fuck yeah, she's always been a dude. She is a hell of an actress.
I bought, like, she has,
because if it was just based on his acting and his delivery, like, I did not buy this at all.
Right. It's almost
like, I was like, this seems so.
He's getting enjoyment out of this.
Yeah, this seems too robotic, like, or masochistic,
Right.
But I was like,
yeah.
But man,
I wouldn't say like, in my opinion, not robotic, but he's he's getting a level of enjoyment out of this that you would have to be, as a father, you would have to be just a complete.
You'd have to be a serial killer.
Yeah, to talk to your child like this and get enjoyment out of it.
But she definitely sells it. I mean,
oh yeah,
100%.
And he says, "Having you, raising you, seeing you every day. I mean, do you have any idea what that's like?" And she's like, lips quivering, tears in her eyes. And he's like, "Gosh, you don't even see what's right in front of your face, do you?" Well, big surprise there. All you ever think about is yourself. You get in trouble, you embarrass us with all the crazy stunts you pull, and do I have to go on? And she says, no, please don't. And he says, you're
But he goes on
sullen.
anyway.
Yeah. And he says, you're sullen and rude, and you're not nearly as bright as I thought you were going to be.
Right?
then
I would have immediately been like, wait a minute, motherfucker. How smart are you? Let's have a fucking IQ test, prick.
And he's like,
he doesn't come across as the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm just saying.
Right. And he says, let's be honest. Could you stand to live in the same house with a daughter like that? And there's tears rolling down her cheek. And she's, why are you saying all these things? And he's like, because they're true. And I think that's the least we owe one another. And full on waterworks now from Buffy, of course.
Yeah.
And he's all like, I don't think it's very mature getting blubbery when I'm just trying to be honest. And he's like, speaking of which, I don't really get anything out of these weekends with you. So what do you say we just don't do them anymore? And he leans over and pats her on the leg, and she's just like staring at him in full on shock. And he's like, I sure thought you'd turn out differently. And he gets up and leaves.
Just very nonchalantly, like he just told her, hey, I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. I mean, he's just like whistling, chewing gum, hands in his pockets, dancing. I'm just like, whoa.
And she can't do anything but just sit there and watch him leave. And,
like she's literally going through every single emotion all at one time. Like she's fucking wrecked.
And again, kudos to Sarah Michelle Gellar. Like she's got very little dialogue in this scene, and she sells it 110%.
She is
my heart.
Scene. Yeah.
My heart broke for Buffy in this scene.
Yeah.
And Hank
I would have been totally okay if she had like Slayer punched him right through the face and like pulled his brain out. Yeah, that would have been cool.
Hank walks past the school, and we see Billy is standing there looking at Buffy, and she looks up and sees him, and Billy turns and leaves, and Buffy, we cut with Buffy clearly fighting back tears as we cut to the library. And did you want to take this, or you want me to keep going?
No, go ahead.
And we cut to the library, and Willow and Xander come in, and Xander's pulling on his gym shirt, and he's all like, where's Buffy? And Giles tells them that she stepped out because her dad came by early and needed to talk with her, and where's your other clothes? And
I'm thinking, wait a minute, with everything that's happened in this episode, you're telling me Giles kept track of what Xander had wearing previously and is concerned with why he's changed his clothes? I don't know. It just seems
right.
So.
And Xander says he wish he had the answer to that question. And Willow says, Xander found himself in front of class not wearing anything except his underwear.
And then she's like, too bad for that.
Right. Yeah. She's giggly, and she's like, yeah, it was really... Then Xander shoots her a look, and she's like, bad. It was a bad thing.
Yeah.
And they go on back and forth about that. And finally Xander's like, it was a total nightmare. And Willow's like, comes to realization. She's like, yeah, it's your nightmare. And she's like, just like what happened to Wendell, the thing with the spiders. And Giles is like, well, I dreamt I got lost in the stacks and that I couldn't read. And then he's like, of course. And Xander's like, our dreams are coming true. And Giles says, dreams, that would be a musical comedy version of this. Foreshadowing. He's like, no, our nightmares are coming true. And Willow's like, well, why is this happening? And Giles says, Billy.
I love it.
And Xander's like, well, that explanation was shorter than usual. And he looks at Willie and he goes, "It's Billy." And then he looks at Giles and he's like, "Who's Billy?"
Who the fuck is Billy?
And Giles gives him the rundown about who Billy is and how he thinks he's somehow crossed over from the nightmare world he's trapped in, and he's bringing the nightmare world with him. And Willow's, how can he do that? And Giles is all like, well, things like that are easy when you live on a hellmouth. And Xander's, like, we have to stop it. And Giles is like, yeah, or soon or otherwise, everyone in Sunnydale is going to be facing their worst nightmares.
And then we cut to Cordelia, who has just opened her locker. And of course, because she's Cordelia, she has a big mirror on the inside of her locker. And she looks in it, and she's got some crazy ass hair, like big, frizzy, unkempt,
It's
fucked
all,
up hair.
yeah, it's all frizzed and teased out. Like
Like it looks like she's been sleeping for a month and that hasn't done anything to her hair. So she's freaking. She grabs her comb and she's trying to comb it, and the teeth break off the comb, and she's like, how is this even possible? I was just at the salon. And then we cut to Buffy, who's walking around outside, still after her father had just wrecked her, and she sees Billy, and he walks into a door that's obviously leading into the gymnasium. So she decides to follow, and she walks inside, and Billy's sitting on the bleachers, and Buffy walks up to him, and she says, Billy Palmer? And he's like, basically like, yeah, that's me. And she's like, why are you here? And she's like, did something bad happen to you after your game? And he's like, I don't remember. And she's like, do you remember playing baseball? And, that's obviously something he enjoyed, because he smiles a little bit and says, yeah. And Buffy says, are you Lucky 19? And he says, that's what he calls me. And she says, who? And he says, the ugly man. He wants to kill me. And he hurt that girl. And all of a sudden he goes, he's here. And Buffy turns around and kaplow, gets clubbed by Club Arm Boy. And commercial. And when we come back, he's clubbing away at her with his big, it looks so, I have to just say, it looks dumb. It looks like they took like a piece of wood and gnarled it all up and then hollowed it out, and the guy stuck his real hand inside of it, and he's just like, bah! And he's like really clumsy with it and slow, but of course it's enough to wreck Buffy. He's basically just kicking her ass, hitting her, knocking her all over the place. And so basically she's limping, fucked up at this point.
This was not a karate fight.
No, there was just a lot of brrr, like Captain Caveman type shit. And she basically grabs Billy, and they bail. Like, they just leave that motherfucker out of the gymnasium. They go outside.
Buffy's like, deuces.
Yep, deuces. And she puts I guess that's a field hockey stick. I'm not real familiar, but she sticks that through the door handles so that he can't at least immediately get after them. And they skedaddle. And then we see Giles and Xander and Willow leaving the library. And he says that Buffy doesn't know, this is happening. And given the types of things she might dream about, it's imperative that we find her like ASAP. And Xander's like, yeah, it'd be faster if we split up. So he goes one way, Giles goes the other way, and Willow's just standing there, and she goes, yeah, faster maybe, but not safer. And she's all alone. And go ahead, James.
So we're back outside the gym after Buffy's slid that hockey stick through the door handle, and Buffy yells for Billy, and Billy says, he says, I'm sorry, I can't help it. And Buffy asks who that is, and Billy says he's the ugly man. And Buffy tells Billy he's too strong and she can't fight him, and they have to find her friends because they can help. And I'm like, really? Can they?
Right. I
Um,
can't defeat him being the Slayer, a superpowered being, but if we find my 3 normal friends, we can wreck him.
Right. And Billy says we have to hide, and Buffy says, he'll find us. And Billy says, yeah, but we have to hide. That's how it happens. We hide, and then he comes. And they go off to find Giles, Willow, and Xander.
And at this point, I'm immediately thinking, okay, the ugly man is a representation of this little boy's drunken, abusive stepfather. That's where I'm at this point.
I wasn't into it enough to care.
Oh, okay. All right then. Spoiler alert.
We cut back inside a Sunnydale High hall, and Willow's coming down the stairs and sees a commotion down the hall, and we see Cordy being dragged by some nerds into a classroom, and she's yelling, "What? No! What are you doing? No! You don't understand. I don't want to go. I'm not even on the chess team. I swear I'm not."
And she is in full nerd regalia.
Yeah.
She's dressed like a nerd. She hit the hair she had earlier. That's like nerd hair, and yeah. So she's fully. That's her worst nightmare. Obviously, is being a nerd.
And Willow smiles at what she's saying, and then she hears her name being called from the door to the basement.
And it sounded to me like Buffy's mother. That's the voice that it sounded like to me, and I kept thinking, okay, odd choice if that was the case.
So Willow heads into the basement, and the voice calls to her again, and Willow's like, "Buffy," and she starts to head down the stairs and calls out for Buffy again, and she reaches the bottom of the steps, and she's looking around, and she's like, "I'm not afraid. You'd think I'm afraid, but I'm not." And she keeps going further into the basement and looks around, and suddenly a hand grabs her on the shoulder and pulls her away as she screams. And we cut to another hallway, and we see Xander come through a door, and we see that the hall's been vandalized, and there's swastikas spray painted, and the lights are flickering, and he sees a chocolate bar on the floor. And like he gets excited and picks it up and tears it open and starts to eat it. And he looks around and sees another one and walks over and picks it up and opens it and starts to eat it. And we cut outside and we see Buffy and Billy come out of a door, and she's confused, and she's like, "I was positive this led to the library." And Billy looks over at some students playing on the other side of the fence, and he looks kind of distraught by it, and he's like, Buffy says, "They're just playing. What's wrong?" And he's like, "Baseball. When you lose, it's bad." And Buffy says, "Did you lose your game last week?" And he nods, and it says it was his fault. And she asks him why, and he says, "I missed a ball and I should have caught it." She says, "You missed one ball and the whole game was your fault. Were you the only one playing? There wasn't 8 other people on your team?" And Billy said, "He said it was my fault." And Buffy asks him, "Who? Did he hurt you after the game?" And she says, and he asks if they can just go find her friends, and she says, "Okay." And the ugly man comes in and punches a student out.
Yeah, I love that. You just hear the sound of like, ugh!
And Buffy's like, "Bad idea. Let's go this way." And she pushes Billy ahead of her through some bushes, and when they get onto the other side, they're in a cemetery and it's night. And Buffy's like, "What the fuck?" And Billy's like, "Is this where your friends are?" And she's like, "No." And here, this is at the point where, in my mind, I was like, I bet it was his baseball coach that beat the shit out of him.
Okay.
But I can definitely see where you're coming from. I've attended youth league sports games in the past, and those parents are fucking brutal.
I've been in youth league sports teams in the past, and
Well, yeah,
those coaches are fucking douchebags too. So
I played youth league baseball for a few years, and it was anyway. We cut back to the basement, and there's a stage manager / director pulling Willow through a door to a dressing room, and she's dressed in a green kimono, and the stage manager's like, I thought you weren't going to show. Aldo's beside himself, and he adjusts her kimono, and Willow can hear the announcer make his announcements on the stage, and he's all like, ladies and gentlemen, we're proud to present two of the world's greatest singers, and the audience is applauding, and the stage manager pushes Willow onto the stage, but still behind the curtain. And he's like, I hope you're warmed up. It's an ugly crowd out there. All the reviewers are here. And the MC is like, all the way from Firenze, Italy, the one and only Aldo Gianfranco, and all the way from Sunnydale, California, the world's finest soprano, Willow Rosenberg. And Willow sees Aldo on the stage through the curtain. He's dressed in a tuxedo. And she backs up and bumps into the stage manager, and she's like, I didn't learn the words. And he gives her a shove, and she stumbles through the curtain and bumps into Aldo, and he gives her a disappointed look, and she's clearly terrified, and the applause stops, and the spotlight's on Aldo, and he begins to sing. And then
he's not that good either, by the way.
The spotlight moves to Willow, and she doesn't do anything, and the spotlight moves back to him, and he starts to sing again, and he finishes, and gives her an annoyed look, and she's like, my turn? And he's like, mm-hmm. And she turns to the crowd and opens her mouth and lets out a high-pitched squeak, and you can hear the audience start to murmur and whatnot, and Aldo's clearly disgusted, and he turns away. We cut to the halls with Xander again, and he pushes through some plastic, and his hands are now full of chocolate bars, and
they're all opened.
And he's taking bites out of all of them.
He's become Hansel.
And he spots another one on the floor, and he's like, oh, a chocolate hurricane. These are the best. I haven't had one of these since my... And he starts to hear a giggling coming toward him. And he looks around, and he's like, 6th birthday. And he sees a shadow come up behind one of the sheets of plastic, and a clown suddenly bursts through, and he screams in abject horror and falls as he's trying to get away, and somersaults backward into the next hall and starts to crawl away fast. Though I should mention the clown is, of course, carrying a knife.
And he has the most annoying laugh.
Yeah.
That just keeps going over and over and over.
So we cut back to the cemetery, and Buffy's walking and looking around.
Let me grab this scene because
that's right. You've got a clip.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So as he said, we're in the cemetery. They're walking around, and Buffy says she doesn't see the ugly man, the sun, or the rest of the world. And Billy walks up to a freshly dug grave and looks down in it, and he's like, I wonder who died. Now, I found it interesting that not only was it a freshly dug grave, there was already a coffin down there open. Because, when someone dies, they dig the grave, they put the coffin down in there and open it, and they just toss the body into it.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
Right.
That's exactly how it works.
I found that somewhat interesting. And anyway, Billy says, I wonder who died. And the master's there. And he says,
Nobody died. What's the fun of burying someone if they're already dead?
You.
So, this is the Slayer. You're prettier than the last one.
This isn't real. You can't be free.
You still don't understand, do you? I am free because you fear it. Because you fear it, the world is crumbling. Your nightmares are made flesh. You have little Billy to thank for that.
oh, you bastard, Billy. So then he comes over and long story short, he grabs her by the throat and throws her ass into the coffin down in the ground. The lid slams shut and he starts burying her alive. And she is freaking the fuck out because, spoiler alert, Sarah Michelle Gellar was freaking the fuck out during this scene.
We'll get to that in the behind the scenes, Jeremy.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to throw a little bit of, leave me alone. And then we come, Willow comes running out of a door and runs right into Xander. And she's clearly traumatized. And so is she.
She's also being pelted with tomatoes.
Yes. And
because everyone takes fresh produce to the opera.
Of course. Now, when you go to the opera, don't you take fresh produce?
I've been to the opera 3 times. I've never taken fresh produce. So that might be my.
You're not doing it right, okay?
I might be doing it wrong.
Yes, you're doing it wrong. So Xander grabs her by the arm and they kind of head away. And he's like, "You remember my sixth birthday?" And she laughs and she's like, "Oh yeah, when the clown chased you and you got so scared that." And then she's like, "Oh shit!" And they turn around and the clown shows up and he's got the knife and they spin and they start to bail and pow, they run smack dab into Giles. And he looks and sees the fucking clown with the knife and they all scream and then they all 3 start running. And Xander's they're running and eventually Xander's like, fuck this. And he stops. And he turns around and he slowly walks back up to the clown and just KOs this fucker. Just knocks him the fuck out.
Cold cocks him right in his red rubber fucking nose.
Yeah, say that again. 3 more times.
Cold cocks him right in his red rubber fucking nose. Cold cocks him right in his red rubber fucking nose. Cold cocks him right in his red rubber fucking nose.
Okay. All right.
Didn't think I could do it, did you?
All right. Good job. So
don't challenge me.
Yeah. He's K the fuck owed. And he was like, you were a lousy clown anyway. Everybody can make balloon animal giraffes. So they come outside of the school. They come through a door and it leads them outside of school. And like it's just fucking chaos. I mean, the school looks all vandalized and fucked up, and you hear sirens everywhere and yelling and screaming, and it's chaos out there. Obviously, everybody's nightmares are coming true at once. So Giles says, things are getting worse. In a few hours, all of reality will fall into the realm of nightmares. And Willow's like, well, what do we do? And he's like, the only thing I can think is we have to try to wake Billy. If we wake Billy, then all this will stop. And they're like, well, we can't go without Buffy. They all agree on that, but who knows where she is. And then Willow looks over kind of across the street from the school and says, when was there a cemetery across the street from the school? And there's this horribly CGI'd portal looking thing that is there. And on the other side of it is a cemetery and it's nighttime. And it's, oh God, it's bad.
Meanwhile, before they cut to the bad CGI portal to the cemetery, I was like, realistically, it could have been at any point that they put the cemetery there. There's so many cemeteries and
yeah, they could have just said there's a fucking cemetery over there. It's Sunnydale for fuck's sake. Everybody dies and No one lives past 35 in Sunnydale. So so they head on over, and they're just like, whose nightmare is this? And they walk a little further, and you see a headstone for Buffy Summers. And Giles says, it's my nightmare. And he kneels down, and he's basically lamenting how he failed her and, should have spent more time training her, et cetera, et cetera. And he says, I'm sorry. And he puts his hand on the freshly turned dirt. And all of a sudden a hand shoots out and grabs his. And he's like, off the fuck? And he's jumping back and pulls out, and it's Buffy. And they're like, Buffy. And she's, brushing herself off. And when she looks up at him, she's a vamp.
The fuck?
Buffy the vamp. Right? And she's basically like, she spins around and covers herself. She doesn't want to be seen. Don't look at me, And Giles walks up behind her and says, you never told me you dreamt of, becoming a vampire. And he's trying to explain to her there's a chance that they can make this all go away. They got to wake up Billy, but they have to do it now. And he's like, can you hold it together long enough to help us? And she turns around and she says, yeah, I think I can, but we better hurry because I'm getting hungry. And she walks away, and Xander walks behind her, and he's like, that's a joke, right? And Willow asks Giles, she's like, are you sure this will work? And he says, yes. And she's like, well, what if we can't wake him up? And he says, Willow, do shut up. And so they follow on behind. And they get to the hospital, and much like outside the school, all hell has broken loose in the hospital. There's people running up and down the halls, nurses, doctors, patients. They're all losing their fucking minds. They run up to the door to Billy's room, and that doctor's there. And he's like, my hands. And they're all fucked up, and that must be his worst nightmare. And he just kind of wanders off. So they go on inside, and this killed me. Giles' plan to wake up Billy was to run over and scream in his face his name repeatedly. Because when a person's in a coma, that's pretty much the medically accepted way of waking them up.
Right.
And so he just keeps yelling in his fucking face, like, Billy. Well, astral projected Billy is standing there, and he's like, that's not going to work. And Giles looks at that Billy and says, you've got to wake up. And he says, no, I told her I have to hide. And, why? From what? And he goes, him. And Ugly Man is coming down the hallway, headed their way. And they're all like, what do we do? And Buffy takes off her jacket and says, I think I know. About that time, Willow looks out the window. And oh boy, do we see some more horrible CGI, as there are gigantic bees buzzing around everywhere there in town.
I believe they were wasps.
Oh, pardon me, sir. Are you sure they weren't hornets?
I'm pretty sure they were wasps.
Okay. And Willow says, well, it better be soon. And let me just go ahead and take this scene.
It's up to you if you want to. Yeah, or I can. Doesn't.
Oh, go for it.
So we cut back into the hall, and the Ugly Man's making his way toward Buffy, and she's all like, glad you showed up. I'm having a really bad day. And he yells, lucky 19. And she's like, ooh, scary. And she's like, I'll tell you something, though. There are a lot scarier things than you, and I'm one of them. And the Ugly Man stops in his tracks and gives her a look, and she vamp roars and runs to attack. And they engage in fisticuffs, and that goes on for a while. And
karate fight.
It is definitely not a fucking karate fight.
She's doing karate. She's fucking spin kicking and fucking.
But he's not doing karate.
No, he's just throwing his wooden arm stump around. But
right.
Yeah,
it is not a karate fight. This is
The one-sided
fisticuffs.
karate fight.
And so they end up in Billy's room, and Buffy ends up beating the ugly man, and Billy asks if he's dead, and Buffy tells Billy to come here, and Billy says he doesn't want to, and she's like, you have to do the rest. And Billy, astral projection Billy, we should say, comes over to the ugly man, and Willow asks what they're doing, and Giles gestures for her to shut the fuck up. And Xander's all like, I get it. And I was like, do you though, Xander?
Yeah, do you? Because I really don't. And I've been watching this whole episode.
And Buffy
and then what he proceeds to do, I go, yep, that's not what I was thinking.
And Buffy takes Billy by the hand, and he looks at her, and she says to him, no more hiding. And he looks down at the ugly man, and Buffy lets go of Billy's hand, and he reaches for the ugly man's neck and peels back his face, and a bright light streams from it. It was like fucking It. It was like when they killed the giant.
I was like, he just peeled his face off. What the fuck?
And the dead lights stream right out of his fucking face.
Into everyone's eyes, and none of them lose their minds.
And everything goes back to normal. The ugly man's gone. Buffy's herself again. Xander and Willow are in their regular clothes they were wearing before everything went down. And the hospital's a functioning hospital again. And Buffy smiles and touches her face. And Willow sighs in relief as Billy wakes up. And Xander's all like, he's waking up. And they gather around. And Billy's like, I had the strangest dream, and you were in it, and he's pointing at them, and he's like, who are you people? And they all smile, and Giles says, let's get the doctor. And as he and Xander are getting ready to leave, Billy's coach comes in, and he's like, oh, Billy's got some company. I'm his kiddie league coach. I come by every day just hoping against hope that he's going to wake up soon. He's my lucky 19. And Giles and Buffy give each other a look, and the coach is like, how is he? Buffy moves to the side to show him that Billy's awake, and she's like, he's awake. Then the coach is like, what?
I was just coming here to finish him off. Fuck.
And Buffy's like, you blamed him for losing the game, so you caught up with him afterwards, didn't you? The coach is all like, I don't know what you're even talking about.
Yes, so what?
And Billy sits up and he's like, you said it was my fault that we lost. And the coach realizes he's been found out, and he tries to get away, and Xander grabs him by the jacket to stop him. And the coach is all like, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling. No.
Yeah, pretty much.
Billy's like, it wasn't my fault. There's 8 other players on the team. You know that. And he lays down, and Buffy looks at him, and she's like, nice going. And they exchange some smiles.
Like, good going. And then it's like, the more you know.
Do, do, do.
Okay.
They exchange some smiles, and we cut back to the school. And
by the way, the coach is life in prison. I mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, got it.
He literally, the stumpy arm thing signifies to me that he must have beat him half to death with a baseball bat.
Oh yeah, that's
so that's definitely life in prison.
Oh yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, all right.
They
just glossed over that,
So they're walking outside the school, and Buffy's like, I just can't believe a kiddie league coach would do something like that. And Xander's like, well, you've obviously haven't played kiddie league. I'm surprised it wasn't one of the parents. And I was like, yeah, I'm 100% with you there, Xander.
Yeah. Just watch a little bit of YouTube, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Oh yeah. And they actually don't gloss over it because Willow does say, "I'm just glad he's behind bars where he belongs."
Yeah, but that type of thing, like Buffy should have mule kicked him out the window of the hospital. I mean, am I right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but that wouldn't play well.
would have played well with me.
And Xander, or Buffy tells Xander he was pretty heroic grabbing him, and Xander's like, I just did what anyone would have done if you want to label it heroic. And at that point, Hank Summers drives up and honks and gets out of his car and waves, and he's like, "Hi." And Buffy says to Willow and Xander, "Have a killer weekend, guys," and takes off after her dad. And Hank comes up and gives her a hug, and he's all like, "It's good to see you, and how was your day?" And she's like, "The usual." And Willow looks at Xander, and she's like, "Question." And he's like, "Yeah." And Willow's like, "When Buffy was a vampire, you weren't still like attracted to her, were you?" And Xander gets all indignant, and he's like, "Willow, how can you? I mean, that's really bent. She was grotesque." And Willow's like, "Still dug her, huh?" And Xander's like, "I'm sick. I need help." And Willow says, "Don't I know it?" And roll credits. That's the end of our show.
That's the end. All right, folks. Thanks for joining. Oh, I'm sorry. What? Let's rate this bitch, James.
All right, give it to me. Rate it? Tell me what you thought.
This is hard. This one was hard for me. Because I wasn't super into it. I mean, it wasn't the greatest episode in the world. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the greatest. But there were so many funny fucking little bits in here, and some of them unintentional, but they were just fucking funny. And that goddamn Hamlet scene, I mean, fucking Wendell, that kid was going for a fucking Golden Globe or something. And so I'm going to give it a 2.5. Yeah, I feel like, right in the middle is about where it's at. There wasn't really nothing was done for the lore really, other than maybe meeting Buffy's father finally. Yeah, the lore it wasn't really touched. And something that annoyed me to no end was the very first scene of the episode with the master spouting off all that gobbledygook to Colin about fear and yada yada yada, like he, and then that's what the episode is basically based on. However, he's clearly not the culprit behind it, and it just happened to happen, and then he's not even involved in it whatsoever. So I'm like, the fuck, that scene obviously didn't need to even happen, but we're 2 episodes from the finale for the season, so obviously they were like, we need to get the master some FaceTime here, so let's throw this in there.
Right. Yeah, that didn't bother me so much, because at the end I viewed it the way, like you just said, like we're ramping up to the season finale. And we need to bring that storyline back into play somehow, even if it's just a couple of brief scenes with those characters. So
right,
it didn't bother me that much.
Yeah, so that was really the only thing that bothered me in the episode. Everything else was all right. It was just one of those episodes, it is what it is.
Right.
What about you, James? How do you feel?
I'm also going to give it a 2.5.
Okay.
There was nothing overtly wrong with the episode. It wasn't a terrible episode. It was a good episode, in my opinion. Like you said, it didn't really add anything to the lore necessarily, outside of the idea of astral projection, that kind of thing, which I don't know that we necessarily
ever
delve
see that
into that again in the next 6 seasons. It's not an episode that I think the season would have suffered without. It's also not an episode that I think is on my list of these are the episodes I'm going to show to someone I try to get into the show.
Oh,
you know?
no, definitely not. No.
But it's not a bad episode.
No.
It
It's just one of those episodes where if it didn't exist, you wouldn't know
right.
it.
It's take it or leave it. I did like even though there was some, uh, what do you call it? I don't want to say magic because it's not magic. Even though there was some supernatural element involved,
Mhm.
I do like the idea at the end, at the core, that our monster of the week was human.
Yeah.
Um,
And they never, I guess they did. I guess the explanation for why he was able to do that was simply because they're on the Hellmouth.
right.
So,
But at the end of the day, I like the idea that our villain was essentially human.
yeah.
I think shows like this benefit sometimes throwing in an episode like that where your villain isn't a supernatural occurrence or a supernatural being,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my overall take on it. So 2.5.
All right. Well, let's talk about some goofs, gaffes, deleted scenes, body count.
Let's little monsterology.
Or the one thing I didn't mention.
You never mention it. Obviously, children, adults, even that result to fantasy as an escape from their terrible realities it's nothing new. It's been the subject of stories probably since the beginning of time. The idea of nightmares coming into reality is also, probably from the beginning of storytelling. Obviously, your prime example is going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street, which, as I pointed out at the beginning, I feel this episode took a lot of cues from from the original Nightmare on Elm Street. So just that whole idea of bringing your nightmares into the real world. It's like I said, dates back, to the beginning of storytelling practically. So
yeah.
Just a little monsterology there. Our body count this week is only, if you even want to count it, Miss Buffy Summers. And I suppose the ugly guy.
I wouldn't really. I guess you wouldn't count either of them, frankly. I mean, because neither one of them were in the real.
See, and there's something else I wanted to kind of touch base on. So I realized that after Billy confronted his fears and woke up, everything went back to normal. But the basis of the problem was that nightmares were becoming reality.
Yeah.
So to me, that begs the question, did these events take place in a dream world?
I say yes, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
None of this was reality because Giles said towards the end of the episode there, within a couple of hours, if we don't stop this, then all of reality is going to fall into the nightmare world.
Right.
But I don't think they reached that point yet. But especially based on the fact that like everything went back to normal as soon as Billy woke up.
But the fact that had already started, and if you remember in the cemetery scene, when Giles says to Buffy, "I never realized you dreamt of becoming a vampire," she then says, "This isn't a dream." And Giles says, No, it's not.
Well, yeah, but I think what they're saying is like, this isn't, I'm not laying in my bed right now dreaming this. but they are on a type of astral plane. It's also not reality. So whereas it might not be a dream, it's also not reality. So because I mean, it's just a simple fact that as soon as Billy woke up, poof, everything went back to exactly how it was before. So, you know,
I don't know.
I'm going to go with you're wrong, and we'll just go. No.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're gonna end up agreeing to disagree on this point because I do agree to the extent that it hadn't become the permanent reality yet, but I disagree to the extent that the things that were happening in reality.
Okay, but were it reality? How the fuck did Buffy become a vampire?
That's one of her fears.
Right.
So it manifested itself.
Oh.
The same way.
But this is supposed to be reality.
Right.
I win. Everybody out there, write us in and tell us how I won. And James is so wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we can, there's so many ways to look at it that there is no right or wrong,
Right.
That's usually the hallmark of a good movie, a good episode, whatever, is that, 8 people can see it and 8 people can come to different conclusions,
Right.
So, but I'm mostly more right than you.
So let's get into some behind the scenes.
All right.
Willow's stage fright, first hinted at in our previous episode, The Puppet Show, gets full blown here. And the scene we see that she hasn't rehearsed for is a duet from Puccini's Madame Butterfly, where Willow is playing Xiao Xiao San.
Yes, that. Mm-hmm.
The selection that they're singing is it's a famous duet from the end of Act 1 as Xiao Xiao San is preparing to spend her wedding night with her new American husband, Pinkerton.
Yeah, no one cares.
You don't know that. You have no idea. You have no idea.
Breaking 101.
After singing the line "Ora se tutta mia," Aldo gestures to Willow as though it's her turn to sing, but in the actual piece that they're singing, he would actually have 3 more lines to sing before it was the soprano's turn.
Was that the first time that he gestured towards her, or the?
Yes, the first time. The first time when the spotlight turns to her.
Okay.
That first time, yeah, that it actually wouldn't have been her turn to sing at that point in the song.
So anyone who spoke Italian, is that what they were singing in, I assume?
Yeah.
So anyone who spoke Italian would have been like, wait, what the fuck? He didn't even finish his shit.
Right. Or anyone that's familiar with Madame Butterfly. Yeah. So as you alluded to, at one point, Miss Sarah Michelle Gellar hated the filming location for this episode because she has a terrible fear of graveyards
and being buried alive.
Regarding filming this episode, she has said, quote, "I have an irrational fear of cemeteries and being buried alive. I told the producer, look, I can't do it. I'm sorry. Through miscommunication, the message never got relayed, and it was 4 a.m, and they basically made me do it. And I was hysterical. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done for my job, ever. Some people find cemeteries a turn on. Some people like sex in cemeteries. Not me. I cried the whole way home. It was horrible.
Wait, who the fuck likes
sex? It's really hard to be the vampire slayer if you're scared of cemeteries.
Who the fuck? When has that ever been a thing?
I'm sure there's people out there that are into it. I'd do it. Don't bother
me.
Me.
Folks. Thanks for joining us this week. That's just
It's
weird.
a little insight
those
into your co-host, folks. I would totally get busy in a cemetery. Don't bother me none.
Wow. I don't even think I would get busy in a slightly dirty subway station. Just saying. I mean, let alone a fucking cemetery, but all right.
Have you ever gotten so
Let's not discuss
getting?
those
Have you ever
things.
gotten busy in public, like outside,
In a Burger King bathroom?
outdoors in general?
Yes, I have.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, one was
You're-
a park, and what you're talking about is a place where dead carcasses are buried.
One was a park where you fucked on the ground, and the other one's a park where people are buried, but you're gonna fuck on the ground.
Except it's not at all a park, even remotely. That's why they're not named like Forest Glen Park.
It's a park.
Forest
It's a park where you
Lawn
bury people. It's a
Death.
park where you bury people.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Wow.
It's a park where you bury people.
Okay. So, any final thoughts?
Where are we? So here's nope. Buffy's date of birth, her year, finally revealed, settled as 1981.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
For this week, at least.
Billy's statement, "I had the strangest dream, and you were in it," and you clearly a reference to
Oz.
Dorothy waking up in The Wizard of Oz.
And I found that very strange. A very strange reference.
Yeah. So at one point in the episode, and we didn't talk about it. Well, actually, no, that's not important. So.
Okay.
No, it's more theater stuff, and you're right. People probably don't care.
No one cares.
Let's jump into some goofs. I've only got two. One, once again, the establishing shot of Sunnydale High is the same one that was used in Teacher's Pet, and then reused in The Pack, where we clearly see Willow visibly sitting on one of the benches.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shit. I'm going to start watching for that every episode now.
And the second
That's
one,
that's the third fucking time, right?
this is the third time.
God
Yeah.
damn. God damn it, Joss Whedon.
And the second one is maybe not so much a goof, but I'm curious. How did Vampire Buffy get to the hospital in broad daylight?
Well, yeah, that's true because it was only night in the cemetery area.
Cemetery, right?
So yeah, that's true. Well, maybe they just threw a coat over her and
They just threw a jacket over her and
yeah, they
called
did
it.
the Spike thing, just threw a coat and ran.
Our music for this week, no music, just our once again for the third episode in a row, just our original score as composed by season 1 composer Walter Murphy.
Yeah, they're not looking to dole out any of that sweet
royalty music.
Royalty music.
Royalty,
so,
yeah. So, and that does it for this week's episode.
All righty. Well,
any final thoughts, Jeremy?
Nope, I'm over it.
All right, then.
Quite frankly, that episode, I mean, again, didn't hate it. Didn't love it.
It was better than the puppet show.
Oh, dude, it was like Schindler's List, compared to the puppet show. I mean, the puppet show was just.
Yeah, it was better than the puppet show.
Oh my God, the puppet show will go down for me as probably at least one of the top 2 or 3 worst episodes in any television series ever. Yes, that's how much I hated it. So where can people find us, James, on social media?
On the socials, people can find us on Facebook at Slade Podcast. There you can find a link tree to all of our other socials, which include Twitter, which is at Slade Podcast, and TikTok, which is at Slade Podcast. If you don't want to reach out to us through our socials on the Facebooks, the Twitters, or the TikToks, feel feel free to email us at buffyrevisited@gmail.com. And that's it. That's all of them.
Well, alrighty then. Well, as always, we want to thank you for joining us this week. Next week, we will be visiting episode 11, the penultimate episode of the season, Out of Mind, Out of Sight. That should be a good show. So, as always, I have been one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
Ta-ta.